All right. Welcome to the new episode here, Franchise Hockey Manager 6. I want to do a draft episode. We just won the Memorial Cup, which is wicked. That was yesterday, at the start of the month there. We had the goalies go hot at the end of the playoffs there. Had a little bit of an easy run there because the best team in the OHL there, Mississauga, knocked out early. So Kingston gave us we just, like, as you can see, the goals against there, the defense against Kingston was just ridiculous. We only let up, 4 goals in 4 games? So a couple shutouts there, which we only had like 1 or 2 shutouts all over regular season, like almost 70 games. So you can see that the defense really stepped up a notch in the playoffs there and just dominated. And the goalies were fantastic. I was rotating them. Silva's just turned up, which at the perfect time of the season, which was great. And then we knocked down. Oh, sorry, I was looking at that wrong because the symbols were the same. I was going to say I was looking at the combination between Kingston and Owen Sound here, but took down Owen Sound a couple times here in a row and then won a couple high-scoring games. But yeah, if you look at the Kingston series, we only let up, like I was talking about, we only let up the 1 goal, 0 goals, 1 goal, and then 3 goals, 1 goal. So just a dominant defensive effort there. And then in the Owen Sound series, started off 2-0 and then went on the road and won 2 more in the arena. Won the championship. It was a sweet game there, 5-4. As you can see, we scored late in the third period there, 13 minutes in. That gave us the game-winning goal there, up 5-3. They got a late one there, but we ended up sweeping them, so that was pretty sweet. Jack Reeves actually didn't play great that game. We had a wicked playoff run, and then in the Memorial Cup, Edmonton was by far the best team, and we knocked them 7-2 in that game. As you can see, they're 52-12 in the regular season. And then we played Prince Albert, who was okay. They were the host team, I think, so they weren't that great. 36-30 regular season. Probably would have been like a 4 or 5 or 6 seed in the playoffs in the WHL. And then there was another pretty solid team, Sherbrooke, that had a decent amount of talent, but as you can see, they only went 35-29. So I don't know if they had some what their story was, if they had some major injuries during the regular season, or is probably just a case of this 19-year-old goalie getting hot during the playoffs and probably beat a couple teams that had a little bit more talent than them. They had a pretty average team here for Memorial Cup standards. Just looking here, Xavier Parent was a pretty high draft pick. I think he was 4th overall in that draft in the Q a couple years ago. But yeah, they didn't have a ton. They just had this one pretty good, really good import here. He must have gone pretty high. I don't know, 2nd round import pick. So yeah, he had a big season there for them, over a point a game, which was good. But yeah, really, just this goalie must have played wicked. Is probably what happened. But anyways, so there was really just the 2 30-35 win teams and then the 2 50 win teams. So it's really us and Edmonton that were the big dogs there. And it's because Edmonton had Dylan Gunther. That was a monster pick here. He was the first pick of the draft in the WHL a couple years ago. Went 3rd overall in the NHL this year. He's pretty good in real life, but not quite this good. In the game, they have him as pretty much a guaranteed 1-1 there. He was had a pretty crazy career there. He had 96 points in this season there in his 17-year-old season, which is an unbelievable 20 minutes a game. Had just crazy ratings across the board. So anyways, that's it. And then what happened is we just simmed. We released all our guys that were expiring and on older contracts and stuff. I held on to Jack Reeves. He's going his OA season, so I'm going to see if I can maybe sign him his OA season and trade him, which would be pretty realistic because we have 3 other OAs I would like to keep over him. We signed the import goalie that we took in the import draft last year, which was cool because we released Silvos since he won't be back with us next year. So Andren is pretty nice. He's looking to be our starter next season. Not quite as good as Greaves, but he's also a couple years younger. So I'd like to go with him next year. And as I need just a good goalie between Greaves and the young guy Sidok here, so I decided to take Andren in the draft last year in the CHL import, and I really just want to give him an opportunity here. I don't really want to have a OA goalie because I really want to keep those 2 forwards, Frasca, and I want to keep what's his name here, Duhart. Duhart had a wicked season. He had almost a point a game on the 4th line early in the year. He kind of moved to the wing and slowed it down a little bit at the end of the year, but he is an unbelievable player. Perfect OA in my opinion. Just a guy that's 6 foot 180, has a solid all-around game, can play literally anything, any of the special teams, any of the defensive roles. He's a pretty good offensive player. He can play literally all 3 forward spots, so he's just so valuable. And I really want to keep him, and I have to keep obviously the Frasca brother, the older one. He's going to go into his OA season here, and so it was definitely I need to keep those two. So if I kept the goalie, I couldn't keep any defenseman. I got to pick between which defenseman to keep between the 6'7", 6'8" guy. They're both going to be back as OAs and in this league, and I'm only going to have room to keep one of them if I'm going to keep Duhart and Frasca. So as much as I want to keep both of them, and maybe just Frasca, and I could let Duhart go, because 6'7", 6'8" defensemen are pretty insane. But I'm pretty okay at defense. This guy's a really good offensive player, so he'll be a really nice defenseman to have back, and he'll be the third line there. And then we have the really good two right defensemen. Clark and Shreddle will be our two best defensemen for sure. Both unbelievable ratings. Shredder is going to be 19, then he should be back for an OA season the year after. He'll probably end up being the captain that following year. He's got really high leadership there, really good defense player, awesome all-around game, been the team for 3 or 4 years. So he's a guy that him and Clark, if Clark comes back this season, we're going to be so good because Clark's just going to be a domino on offense. But if we have Clark in the NHL next season, I think Shredder will fill in handily as the number one defenseman. He's definitely good enough to be a number one defenseman in this league. Should have put up almost a point a game on the head power play unit if he ends up having to do that role. So if not, we're going to have two really good defensive lines on the right side. And then we're going to have Cook, probably good enough to be a second line guy. And then one of these two guys, the first line guy, to pair with Clark, a really defensive player to pair with the offensive Clark. So definitely, I think the decision to go with a defenseman over Greaves will probably be worth it in my opinion. But I don't know. Maybe I'm making a big mistake here because Greaves is pretty highly rated. But in my opinion, he's just not quite high enough over Andre to make it worth it. So, because Andre here is actually pretty solid. So, anyways, that's the decision. I just got to now decide between Brand and this Russian guy. Although he's not an import, I guess he's born in Canada. So, they're pretty similar players, both just big stay-at-home defensemen. It's just this guy has such crazy speed as 13 and 14 acceleration, such crazy speed combo with his checking at 6'7", over 200 pounds. And Brand's just a little bit slower, but he's also got 17 strength, which is crazy. And same ratings there, just like 14, 13 across the board on defense. So really just the same type of player. Brand's just a tad more defensive. He's actually an inch bigger and almost 25 pounds heavier. So it's pretty monstrous player. That's pretty intimidating. So it's going to be a tough decision between those two. I really, really like those two players. They're honestly probably two of my favorite players on the team last season just because their size and the presence they bring. And it's just going to be really hard to decide. He was a plus 42 last season, Brand, as the third line defensive guy, because we had those two, and then we had the captain Hill on the first line, 6'5", 200 pounds. So those three left defensemen were just physical freaks. And he was a plus 42, so we're pretty similar, plus 42 and plus 39. So both just monsters there. He was a second line pairing last season with the overager York on the right side. And then we had, that's pretty crazy to think about. We had Brand and Shreddle's third line pairing there, 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds. So has a really good team, 53-win team. So it's pretty fun. But anyways, that's decisions there on the OAs and stuff. And now I want to just show you the draft. So we simmed to our pick here. We picked 20th. I've been really thinking about this one for a while, probably overthinking it quite a bit. Took a couple days off there after the Memorial Cup in real life just to kind of, I thought it was a pretty fun season and I didn't want to burn out, so I just thought it'd be a nice break. Kind of busy at work, so now I've been thinking about this draft pick honestly for a couple days in my head, and I can't really decide. I think Skoll is probably almost too good to pass up at this point in the draft. He's by far the best offensive player. He's the only pretty much center with like 10 ratings and everything, and 11 speed and 11 puck handling, two of the most important categories there, and just 6'1", so he'll probably end up being like 6'2", 6'3", like 200 pounds in a couple of years there. And he's pretty good at face-offs. He actually has hitting rating. Just his defense is pretty weak. Probably, in my opinion, for the four, the two best categories to go for on defensive ratings there, stick checking and defensive read. His checking and hitting aren't crazy important. Shot blocking, I don't value. Like, it's not important, but it's just compared to the other stuff. But stick checking and defensive read are kind of the two main things. Have them in good position and good one-on-one defensive skills. So I think since those are his two lowest ratings pretty much, probably not a great sign, but he's such a good offensive player. And he's a guy that, like I said, I think will have pretty good size, 6'1" already, late birthday. He's still young, so that's a guy that has some pretty big potential there. There's a couple defensemen. Probably the best one is Brent here. He's got 4-star potential. And he's got 11 speed, pretty good defensive ratings, and his highest category is passing. So 6'2" defenseman, probably going to grow to like 6'3", 6'4", like 190 by the end of his 18, 19-year-old season. So he's going to be a big body that can pass the puck. Probably grow into a first-line defensive player there. Not a great hitter with checking and hitting being his lowest categories, but he's a really good positioning player where he has good positioning, defensive read. Seems to be in the right place, just not a superly overly physical guy. Low fighting also, and low aggression. So really just a reserved guy, but pretty talented there with really good defensive ratings on the, like I said, in the mental side of it, and then the speed combination with the skating is pretty good. So he's the guy that could get as high as 15, 16 passing, which would be pretty ridiculous for defensemen. So he's a guy that I think if you want an offensive defenseman there on that left side, he's probably the one to look at. And then there's the more defensive guy here, also 6'2", but he's about 20 pounds heavier. A little higher defensive ratings, but also not a great skater at all. Only 6 agility and 7 speed and 7 acceleration. So he's pretty weak skater, not very strong, very weak offensively. Probably would just be about 10 rated in all those categories when he's 18, 19 as a first, second line guy. So probably a guy you don't want to spend a first round pick on because it'd be pretty easy to find a defensive rated guy like that won't really be ever an offensive threat later in the draft. So I don't think I would go with him. And then I guess it would just be down to probably these two forwards is the way I'm looking at it right now. Skoll, and the highest potential one, 4.5 stars there is this Kale guy here. He's got really good defensive ratings, but he can also hit a little bit, which is pretty impressive for a small guy. But he's also not that small. He's just not tall, but he's 190, so he should fill out well over 200 pounds. Be a physical forward there. I probably would turn him into a center because he has really good defensive ratings. And so he would probably be a nice two-way center, play a big defensive two-way game there with his good hitting, good defensive read, good stick checking. Really good all-around ratings in offense. Just really consistent. Anything in the future, these guys aren't as good in the game when they're computer-made players. So anyone in the draft that has over like an 8 in categories is like pretty above average. Anyone that has all 9s and 10s like this is going to be a top player because 12, 13 ratings in those categories when he's an older player there is going to be one of the best players in the league. There's not too many guys in the drafts. Like as you can see, there's no one over like a 0.5 star in the future. There's just, they make these players really weak for some reason. Like this would be the highest current rated player in the draft, not including potential. So it's just like they make these players not quite as good as the guys currently in the game when you start. So you got to kind of adjust your ratings accordingly. This guy actually is pretty nice. I like that guy. Not a lot of high upside, but he's got really good mental ratings, almost 10 and everything. Nice shot, good passing and offensive read. Decent defense, not great, but not terrible. Pretty balanced. Probably would be close to a average defender there by his 17, 18-year-old season. Probably be above average. His 19, 20-year-old seasons. Has some decent speed for defenseman, 9. So anyways, he'd probably be a guy to look at the second round there. And then next highest rated forward current status is this guy, not including potential. Got a really nice frame, 6'2", would probably be 6'3", 6'4", maybe even 6'5", 185 in a couple years. Guy that has really good ratings in the mental side of things. Has a really good get open rating, which is kind of like a goal scorer's category there. So it would probably be more of a goal scorer than a passer, which is nice from your wingers. I seem to always kind of draft the good playmakers, but I think in the future got to start drafting a little bit more finishers because you need some guys to score goals. I can't have everyone passing the puck. Got to have some nice shots on the wings there, and I always seem to be lacking that and have to trade for that. So that's pretty valuable to trade for. It's hard to get those guys. So having guys like that have high get open ratings is always important. I think he's a guy to look at for sure. I like his speed too. 9 speed, 9 acceleration is pretty solid and decent defensive ratings for a winger. Not great, but 8 stick checking, 7 positioning. Those categories would probably be average in a year or two. So he's another guy I think would be pretty nice to have on the wing there with a good frame, good finishing ability, and solid passing, and offensive read are decent still. So another good all-around player. I think I'll have to think about it a little bit more here. I'm heading to work in a bit, so I'll think on it today. But as soon as I get home tonight, I'll probably do the draft. And my guess, I forgot to show you this guy. He's pretty solid too. Just doesn't have any potential, so he probably wouldn't go up much. But his one shooting range is so bad. And his defense ratings are so bad. Yeah, never mind. Not even worth talking about him till the 3rd or 4th round. But yeah, I think I'll probably end up going with this guy here, Kale, and moving him to center. But I really do like this defenseman. Where that defenseman we were looking at go? I think it was Turbine. Yeah, he's a really solid defensive player. So it's probably going to be down to those two, the center, and then that winger I just showed you. I'd probably move to center or this guy. So I'll think about that on the day and then finish this draft when I get home tonight.